You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready? Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Ready Writer. I am your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest is Stephen Ross. Let's get the show started. So, you have a book out. Um, Going back in childhood, was being an author a thought in your mind, or is this something in life that happened without you knowing it was going to happen?
I had no idea I was going to be writing a book. Are you kidding me? No idea. And, um, you know, I didn't even know when I started knocking on doors as a real estate agent that I'd write a book. I had no idea that the journey of it would turn into a book, right? You just going through life and then all of a sudden you realize you have a story, you've got something to say.
So, what was it about your work that caused you to believe you needed to write this book?
I think, it's for, obviously I wrote it for real estate agents, but it applies to many people who are up to something. And it's the advice I needed when I got started, right? I lived the last 16 plus years and I thought, if someone had just laid it out this way, it would have been so much simpler.
Understood. So first, let's talk about, when did you realize you wanted to be in real estate? When did the idea of being in real estate come to you?
Well, I had, I went to college and I got a job, and then I did a couple jobs, and I worked for a consulting firm, and I worked on Wall Street, and then I did a medical startup, and when that ended, this was like the end of 2005, and I was living in Southern California, and for those that know Southern California and Southern California real estate, it can get very hot and very expensive. And especially in 2005, I saw a lot of people who I thought were not too sharp, no offense to them, but I saw a lot of people just making a lot of money. And I thought, how hard could this be? I could do that. And, of course, everything always looks easier from the outside, kind of like writing a book. It seems easy, and it is not. But mostly, the reason I got into real estate was because I wanted to be able to be home with my kids. I got my real estate license March 15th, 2005, and my third child was born a month later. So there I was, right, with 3 kids on commission-only sales.
And that was the start of it. So talk about now your publishing process. When you decided you needed to write a book, how did you know where to start?
Wow, that's a great question. Uh, there's so many places to go, right? And there's so many people out there who will, and I don't want to say this, it's going to sound terrible the way I say this, but that's not what I mean. There's a lot of people who are happy to take your money and tell you how to write a book. And I did actually pay someone some money to help me, but that's that's not. I knew what I wanted to write. I had read lots of books. I'd read, actually, I don't know if you want to go this way, but so I read Ryan Holiday's book, Perennial Seller. And Ryan Holiday is a successful author. He's written a lot of best-selling books. I happen to like his writing. I happen to like what he has to say. I like his take on Stoic philosophy. And he breaks down what it takes to write something that lasts beyond, just it coming out. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about, what I had to say, but putting it in a way that would, last more than 12 months. So that was the first piece, is taking the time to kind of really think about that and write, think write about it as well. And then secondly, I did hire a book coach because, in real estate, I've always had a coach. And one of the things you get by having a coach, well, actually you get two things. One, I mean, mostly you get accountability and you get good advice. But the third thing is usually you have to pay for it. And the fact that you got to pay for it sort of makes, number one, accountability be more effective, because if you don't do what they tell you to do, you're wasting a lot of money. And paying a coach, and she also served as an editor as well, so she was really helpful, really insightful. And most importantly, sometimes a coach is someone just to root you along when things don't always seem to be going so well for you, or at least from our point of view, it's like, it's hard. I don't know if this is right. I don't know if what I have to say will make a difference. I don't know, if it's any good. And having someone actually cheer for you, right, is helpful.
So your book doors open when you knock. Now, you mentioned earlier when you started out, you were knocking on doors. Now, I know nothing about real estate, but knocking on doors is not something I associate with real estate agents. So what exactly were you doing? What does that mean as far as knocking on doors, and how does that associate with your book?
That's a great question. Yeah, I've been doing it so long, I just automatically assume everyone knows how that works. And if you live in a warm, well, I'll just say back in the 70s, probably 60s, 70s, and maybe even the 80s, in many warmer parts of the country, going door to door is what a lot of real estate agents did. And that's how they met people, and that's how they sold property. And it was not uncommon. Not that every agent did it, but it was not uncommon. And as time has gone on, it's obviously become less common, because who in their right mind would want to go knock on a stranger's door to talk about real estate, right? That's just sounds like the dumbest idea ever. And it's scary and terrifying, and it's a lot of work, actually. But really, the point is that in real estate, in real estate, you get paid to connect people and property. That's our job as a real estate agent. And one of the things about when you go door to door as a real estate agent, the people and the property are right there. You get to meet them both. So you get to learn a lot about the neighborhoods and the inventory, and why people choose the neighborhoods they choose, and why they stay and why they leave. You get really smart as a real estate agent. And that's why I kept doing it, is because it just made sense. I'm an anti-social introvert. I don't like parties. I'm not online. I don't do any of the traditional stuff, but I knew I had to talk to people in order to sell houses. And so that's kind of why I did it. And the thing I'll just say is, right, almost no one is moving the day you knock on their door. Like, that just doesn't happen very often. And so really it's about, can you develop it's really about relationship building. So can you develop relationships with people, and can you persist over time? Which is a lot like writing a book, right? How do you persist? Because most of us aren't writing a book in an afternoon. Most of us are not that gifted, or the idea is not that crafted, right? It's a long evolution. So knocking on doors, little did I know when I started back in 2005 that it would be this whole journey, evolution, metamorphosis, whatever you want to call it. I had no idea.
So what are some tips you can give, not only to real estate agents, because nowadays some people just sell their house themselves. They don't actually use a real estate agent. And unfortunately, some people make costly mistakes that cost more than just, an ouch. So you can give 2 tips to people to never do, or things they need to do before they even consider trying to sell a house.
Wow, selling a house. You brought up a good point. There's no doubt there are certain people, and in certain markets with certain types of property, they feel very confident to selling it themselves. So I'm not saying everyone should use a real estate agent, but if you are going to use a real estate agent, I think the biggest thing you got to get is, can you trust them? Now that sounds like a loaded term because many people equate real estate agents with used car salesmen. No offense to used car salesmen, right? People think some real estate agents are the least trustworthy people in the world. But having been a real estate agent for 17 years and knowing hundreds, if not thousands of real estate agents, I do know there is a difference. And I think all of us know when we're talking to someone that we can implicitly trust with a big decision. When someone's looking out for our interest first and not theirs, I think is the number one thing to look for.
And would you recommend someone who does get a real estate agent or sell it themselves also have a real estate lawyer? Because I know sometimes people overlook the contracts, they don't really read through them or they don't understand them, so they sign them thinking everything's okay. Would you suggest also, is there a separate difference between the two? And would you suggest someone hiring two, both of them?
I mean, I've sold in California and Colorado, and neither of those states are attorney states, whereas some states, particularly back east, require an attorney. Since I've never sold in those states, I couldn't expertly say, one way or another. I would say, though, that in the states that I have sold, it's definitely not required. Depending on the property, I mean, a good agent knows how to walk you through the contract. If you know you have a particularly difficult issue or you know you're sitting on something, let me say it a different way. If you're selling just a tract house in the San Fernando Valley or the suburbs of Denver, it's pretty straightforward. A good agent walks you through it. If you're selling 40 acres, here in Colorado, I've sold land before, and there's a lot of land that can be sold, and some have mineral rights, and some have water rights, and some have all sorts of other legal issues. Yeah, in those cases, it is helpful to have an attorney. So it's really just case dependent.
So what advice would you give someone who is blind to, because now I'm sure you've noticed the epidemic of commercials and ads, come to this webinar or this seminar will teach you how to make billions of dollars in real estate, and it's so easy and simple, and learn how to buy a house and sell it and blah 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 blah. Or they watch a reality show where they show in 30 minutes someone buying a home and selling it. And unfortunately, people don't really realize that it takes more than what they're saying, and they get into it and then they realize, oh wow, this is not what I thought. So someone who's thinking about getting in the business, what is something you can tell them to be aware of that television and those seminars are not really telling them?
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I mean, there is no such thing as an overnight success, as far as I know, in anything. And anyone that I've ever met or listened to, there's this saying, 10 years in overnight success. It just takes time, right? It just takes time. And I know very few people in real estate, and I've met a lot of agents and a lot of really, really good top agents, and almost none of them were successful on day one. They might have been successful in what they did before, but starting in real estate, it just, nothing happens overnight. And so the number, that's part of the point of the book, right, is to develop perseverance. And part of having perseverance is having patience and having the patience for the success to come.
And do you foresee yourself in the future writing more books?
I'm already almost done with the second book. And I have I don't know that that's the next book I'm going to publish. It's that book's a take on Stoic philosophy. It's a meditation or an essay particularly for real estate agents on a daily basis, just how to deal with the day-to-day of real estate. But I do have another book in mind. I have the title worked out. I'm not going to say anything yet, but I have the title worked out. I kind of have maybe not quite the chapters worked out, but I sort of have the gist of what I want to cover. So I like writing. I like the thought process that it makes me do. And I would almost say I will probably always write for as long as I can. It just helps clarify my thinking. Will it always turn into a book? I don't know, but yes. So the answer is a long way of saying yes, there's more books coming.
Great. And my last question for you, if you had the opportunity to talk with anyone, I don't know if you're aware of anyone in history in real estate, but if you had an opportunity to talk to anyone who may be dead or alive in real estate, and have a conversation, ask questions, who would this person be and why?
Wow, that's a great question. You know what, this is going to sound completely off the wall, and you are not going to believe the answer I give you. Are you ready, Casey?
Yes.
The person that I would like to ask questions of that has no bearing on real estate is I would like to talk to Abraham Lincoln. And the reason is so many people, it seems like, I'll just say, it seems like today look back at what he had to deal with and his success as a president, right? He's looked back on as one of the more successful presidents. And I would really like to know, I'd like to hear him, right? I'd like to hear him share what it was really like to deal with what he had to deal with. And obviously there's lots of books and stuff written about it, but it's not the same as if you got to really talk to someone, because, we all have tough stuff to deal with in life. And it seems like it's only us that's dealing with it. But people have dealt with it before, and people have had doubts and still persevered. And to hear them talk about it in their own words and hear how they really had to face tough decisions and deal with detractors and all the naysayers. And, that's, when you write a book or you take on anything sort of and make yourself visible, you're susceptible to what people are going to say about you. And to have the fortitude to stand strong in what you believe and move forward anyway, regardless of what others say or do, that's a really difficult thing to do. It's easy for people to talk smack about you and put you down and criticize. People want to do that all day long. They don't have to think too hard about it. But to actually take a stand for something and move forward, it's really hard. And, that was one of the things about writing the book was, I say lots of things and I believe lots of things, but to actually put it in writing and put that out there was a real test of my courage. So that's who I'd probably go back and talk to.
That is all the time we have for you today on The Ready Writer. I want to thank our guest, Stephen Ross, for sharing his journey. And of course, you, the audience, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Have a great week.